Right now on BBC Two, blowing the whistle on Victorian crime with Adam Hart-Davis.
In 1883, a Birmingham toolmaker called Joseph Hudson accidentally dropped his violin. He realised the unusual noise could be put to a good purpose. He adopted the sound for a whistle he was making for the Metropolitan Police, and the note proved so distinctive that it was soon taken up by police forces all over Britain. Sherlock Holmes solved his first case, A Study in Scarlet, in 1887, with a combination of guile, science, and pure reason. Eliminate the other factors, and the one that remains must be the truth. He was the archetypal Victorian detective, armed, of course, with a magnifying glass, the deerstalker, and accompanied by his faithful Dr. Watson. Drive on! Yep, yep. The Victorians were fascinated by crime, and Sherlock Holmes fed an insatiable appetite for the excitement of the criminal underworld. Across Britain, huge numbers of people had migrated to towns and cities. This crowding together of strangers led to feelings of distrust and insecurity. And just as today, public fears were stoked with sensational reports of the most lurid crimes. The Victorians began to feel that they were being swamped by a crime wave. There seemed to be an increase in lawlessness in towns and cities right across the country. Crime was becoming a political issue, and action was needed. In 1829, Sir Robert Peel introduced bobbies, or peelers, to London, and in 1839, the Birmingham force appeared. But it wasn't until 1856 that the government decided that every town in the country should have its own police force. For the police to be effective, they had to be recognisable by the public. So they wore a distinctive uniform.
The early uniform started off with a top hat like that.
Great. I like that.
That's for the air of authority.
Right.
You're the boss, you're telling the people what to do.
Okay.
Don't park that wagon there. But the jacket is a tail jacket. Now, the idea was that people in authority would wear the top hat, so they were giving the orders. But the tail jacket is like a servant's jacket for servitude. The public were paying us our wages, but we were telling them what to do. So they are the masters and we are the servants.
Quite a tricky relationship.
It's a very unusual relationship.
Now, it's a nice jacket, but it doesn't seem to have any pockets.
No need for pockets at all. We didn't start having pocketbooks till the 1890s.
But what about evidence?
Prisoners were dealt with the next day. There was none of this giving them bail and going on remand. They'd do a runner and go to another town.
Right.
Statement taking didn't come in really till the late 1880s.
Gosh. And then what on earth's this?
Now, this is your cutlass.
That's
You will wear
vicious
that at
brute,
all
isn't it?
times.
Oh, that's a vicious weapon, isn't it? I wouldn't like to be on the receiving end of that.
Policemen had to be trained in cutlass drill before they were allowed out on the streets.
OK, let's get out on the beat.
Don't forget your hat.
I
Come on
won't.
then.
Out on the streets, a policeman's lot was not always a happy one.
Right, now you're patrolling the beat, the first thing you've got to do is stay on the curb side of the pavement.
Why is that?
It's so you can be seen and it keeps you away from the houses. I need you to be at the bottom of the road at the right time to meet the sergeants. You do not go into public houses. You do not stop and gossip and chatter. You will stop barrow boys parking their barrows on the pavement. You will stop people using the pavement to be carried in sedan chairs. And let's just get one other thing straight. You do not leave this beat until you are relieved by the night duty constable.
How long do I have to do this for?
7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night.
14 hours?
14-hour shifts.
But I get a lunch break?
No, 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 no. Under no circumstances, definitely not.
Oh, wonderful.
No, you take your lunch while you're out on your beat. In the sunshine, it can be a pleasant job. When you get cold, you get very, very cold. Your biggest pitfall is going to be discipline. You've got to keep your bedroom tidy. Your blankets have to be folded according to orders. Don't forget, only last week, PC Fry was fined £1 because he didn't report that the street hadn't been cleaned.
When can I get to use my cutlass?
Hopefully never. Put it away. It's not there to stab everybody. It's to threaten them, not to go cutting off people's ears as Sergeant Price did some time ago.
OK, so what sort of people are we looking for now?
Rogues, tinkers, thieves, vagabonds, anything from pickpockets to murderers.
The police could stop crime as it happened, but only if they were in the right place at the right time. All too often they weren't. For some notorious criminals, it was all too easy to escape the long arm of the law. In 1888, these streets in London's East End were the hunting ground of one of Britain's most notorious criminals, the fearsome Leather Apron, more commonly known as Jack the Ripper. His crimes were cold and calculated. He cut the throats of 5 women, all of whom had fallen into disrepute. The first 2 and the last 2 had their bodies horribly mutilated, but on the 3rd occasion he was almost caught in the act. He escaped, and within the hour he killed his 4th victim. The Victorians were already terrified about crime, and these murders really touched a raw nerve. The Queen wrote to the Home Secretary expressing her severe concern, and the people were desperate to find out about the murders. The newspapers were only too happy to print all the salacious details because their circulation was going up. In fact, some people said that journalists planted false evidence just to keep the story on the boil. The police came in for a lot of criticism for their handling of the case. They put out extra patrols and stakeouts in the streets, and they tried entirely new techniques. They got bloodhounds in. It was the first time they'd ever been used to try and track down the criminal. And while the bloodhounds were in London, there was no murder, and the police decided they were too expensive to feed and sent them home. Come on, dogs. And then the Ripper started again. There were plenty of suspects, but the Ripper was never caught. In a murder investigation today, the police would unleash a whole battery of techniques that were simply unavailable to the Victorians. Nevertheless, the Victorians were the fathers of forensic science. The first forensic test was developed in 1840 to detect arsenic. Arsenic was a popular poison in the 19th century. It was sometimes known as inheritance powder because poisoners could easily bump off their relatives without leaving incriminating evidence. In 1832, a chemist called James Marsh testified at the trial of a poisoner. Marsh knew John Bodle had used arsenic, but he couldn't present convincing evidence in court, and the guilty Bodle went free.
Before Marsh, there was an extremely simple test for arsenic. All you had to do was to pass hydrogen sulfide through the suspect solution, and what you obtained was a yellow precipitate if arsenic was present. The problem with this was that if you left it for a few hours, the solution would basically go colorless, and you had no precipitate left. And therefore, this was useless for presenting to a jury.
Angered by Bodle's later admission of guilt, Marsh developed the first test for arsenic that would stand up in court. You take a sample, in this case wine, laced with a few grams of poison, and heat it with acid and zinc. The arsenic in the wine can be revealed by heating the gas that comes off. The poison produces a stable, silvery metallic deposit.
And this is the clincher. We have a thin layer of metal on our porcelain dish. This proves that there was arsenic in the wine, and this became the poisoner's downfall.
The Marsh test was still used until the 1970s, and it wasn't the only Victorian crime-busting invention to stand the test of time. Photography was a giant leap forward. For the first time, they had accurate descriptions of the rogues. In fact, it was the introduction of the Rogues Gallery. Mugshots allowed police all over Britain to exchange accurate descriptions of fugitives. It was getting harder and harder to escape the law. For miscreants, crimes and misdemeanours were dealt with severely. So there's some pretty vicious sentences here, aren't there?
Very.
Wow.
These are the 1860 records that the police were keeping for the prisoners sent to the assizes or the sessions. Thomas Davitt, aged 19, a labourer for an assault. 18 calendar months imprisonment. Dupont, Sebastian Dupont, 49, a linguist for forgery. 14 years penal servitude.
14 years. So these are fairly severe sentences. What's the worst sentence in the
The
book?
worst one for the crime has to be a Mr. Gray, alias Murphy.
Right.
23-year-old gas fitter from Birmingham.
Yeah.
Theft of one rabbit. 10 years penal servitude.
10 years?
10 years.
For stealing a rabbit?
For stealing one rabbit. Very vicious.
Wow. Before Victorian times, prisons were more like dens of iniquity than houses of correction. After a visit to Newgate Jail in 1836, inspectors reported shocking findings. They'd seen a body of criminals of every class engaged in riot, debauchery and gaming. Newgate wasn't unique. Most prisoners had access to gin shops and prostitutes. In fact, your life as a prisoner depended on how rich you were, because you had to pay the jailers. So if you had lots of money, you got better conditions. In fact, if you could afford it, you could live in the governor's house. You could even pay for somebody else to serve your sentence for you. The inspector's report horrified Parliament and the nation. Regardless of expense, a new penal system had to be developed. A system dedicated to moral regeneration. In the early 1840s, the Victorians built new prisons of an unprecedented size, like this one in Leeds. Behind the traditional facade hides a state-of-the-art Victorian building designed to keep large numbers of prisoners segregated and under constant view.
If you looked above from where we stood now, it's like looking on a bicycle wheel, and the four wings are going off from the hub. You've got control of the environment on each wing. So if there's any, for example, an incident on one wing, the person in charge of the prison can see what's going on and direct staff to that area. No blind spots, for example. It's an overall view of what's going on in the prison at that time.
The accommodation wings were built to house hundreds of prisoners, each locked in his own cell.
The cell itself is physically the same as it was a long while ago. And interestingly enough, in this establishment, several prisoners prefer to be on this side of the prison and in a cell like this than they would to a cell that was built about 10 years ago.
Victorian prisons were built to enforce a new penal system. For prisoners, it was out with gambling and women and in with punishment and retribution, a regime known as solitude and servitude. Victorian prisons were crowded, but for the prisoner, solitude meant isolation. They weren't allowed to speak to one another, and they had to wear these Scotch caps, pulled low down so they weren't recognisable. The only form of identification was a number on the otherwise anonymous prison uniform. Servitude meant hard work, and the prisoners had a huge range of ludicrous tasks to perform, like this one, the crank. It was completely pointless, and yet they had to turn this 10,000 times a day. That's 1,200 an hour, once every 3 seconds, at this speed for 8 hours solid. And it doesn't do anything, it merely clocks up the numbers. What's more, every now and then a warder would come along and tighten up the screw to make it more difficult to do and harder work. That's why they were called screws. Only 9,947 to go. Every aspect of prison life was severely ordered. Even the food was unremittingly boring. Look at this. For breakfast, 8 ounces of bread and a pint of this gruel. For dinner, 3 ounces of cooked meat, a pound of potatoes, and 8 ounces more bread. Mind you, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, they didn't have the meat and potatoes, they just had a pint of soup and the bread. And then for tea, 8 ounces more bread and another pint of gruel. A thriller minute. By today's standards, life inside Victorian prisons sounds barbaric, but then life outside could be even worse. There's a story of a flower girl who took off her shoe and deliberately smashed all the lights outside the mansion house, hoping she'd be arrested and locked up in jail, because at least there would be food and shelter. In fact, in the 1840s, despite the severe regime, a quarter of all convicts were re-offenders. Gradually it became obvious that solitude and servitude weren't doing anyone any good. Convicts were being released with only the skills they'd had in their criminal past. Around 1860, prison reformers won the case for supervised association between prisoners and the beginning of useful tasks. Out with the crank, in with the prison farm. And some prisons even taught their inmates to sew uniforms and later mail bags. It was the beginning of rehabilitation. During Victorian times, the punishments for criminals were greatly reduced. They weren't hanged for everything. And as a result of that, it became well worth it for the criminals to expand their horizons and go in for all sorts of new businesses like coining or forging. This is a genuine Victorian gold sovereign. Isn't it beautiful? And also it's very valuable because it's made of gold. It doesn't matter that it's in the shape of a coin. Because it's gold, it's worth money all over the world. As a result of that, criminals began making gold, not using alchemy, but using electricity. Here I've got a genuine Victorian penny which has been silvered over. And I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to lower it into this solution of potassium gold cyanide with another electrode in it. You'll see if you look carefully that it's fizzing a bit. And that's because there is chemistry going on stimulated by the electricity that's passing through. And in just a few seconds, we'll have coated a little layer of gold on it. And you'll see the difference when I take it out. Here is the silver one, and here is the one that is now gold-plated. Gents were obviously worried about all these forgeries, and so they used to carry around with them little balances like this, just to check any sovereign that they were given. If it's made of silver or platinum with a thin coating of gold, it'll be too light. But if it's genuine gold, it should be at least as heavy as this counterweight. And let's see. Yes, you can see. It's actually heavier than that counterweight, and so I can be certain that this is a pure gold sovereign. With all the real dangers Victorians faced on the streets and the spine-tingling excitement of Sherlock Holmes, it's no wonder they shut themselves in their houses and found safety in the security of a firmly locked door. This is Willen Hall on the edge of Wolverhampton. In Victorian times, Willen Hall used to be the lock-making capital of the world. They used to say that if a locksmith here dropped a lock he was making, it was quicker to make another one than to pick the old one up. Even before Victoria's reign, the master locksmiths of Willen Hall could craft locks of remarkable sophistication. But most people just wanted locks that looked secure and were cheap. So, Andy, what are we going to make?
We're going to make a bar padlock.
A bar padlock. What's that?
Here's a bar padlock fitted to this here gate. What it is, it's supplied with 2 or 3 eyelets,
right,
and you put an eyelet on either side, so either door. Then you can drop your bar through. Then you drop your shackle on, and you feed it through the other eyelet.
Yes.
And it locks the whole thing.
And it's quite secure, isn't it? You'll be able to give that a good
quite
walloping.
heavily built. Oh yeah.
So, how do we make it?
Well, we'd start off with the back plates and the front plates, which are a common component.
Go. Oh. Wow. Oh, that's it.
That's it.
That's really nice, isn't it? Okay, thanks a lot. So, just like that, yes?
Just a lot, yeah.
And just wallop it?
Yeah, just flatten him out.
It looks too thin, but is it all right?
No, that's fine.
And then just pull it around?
Yeah, pull it round.
Like that. So it just needs squeezing a bit there, yes?
Yeah. If I hold it, you hit it.
That's dangerous.
When I nod my head...
Yeah, just keep your fingers out of the way, that's all. It seems to have got a bit twisted. I think you must have done that. It's looking better now. Yeah. Good. Where's the original one? Oh, yeah. So it's not bad then, is it? Well, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. So when it comes over this way, it's locked. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And then to open the lock, you pull that back.
That's really clever. So that is a bar padlock, yes?
Yep.
As made by, what was the chap's name?
Mr. Hodson.
Mr. Hodson, in their thousands.
From the 1790s up until the 1960s.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh, almost 200 years.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah.
It works. So I can lock up my stables or my daughters if I had
whichever
any.
you prefer,
Yeah.
Okay.
Cheers. Now, the trouble with these bar padlocks is they aren't very secure. Theoretically, you need exactly the right key to throw the bolt, which goes like that, and that will pass the wards. But in practice, all you need is a shorter key, like this, and you'll see you don't need to go near the wards. You turn it round there like that, and you can throw the bolt that way, and not going near the wards in the bottom. They clearly needed something better. Now, the next big step forward in locks was this, the lever lock. So when I manipulate the key, you'll see that the key lifts up all of those levers until they're all in line, and now the stump can go straight through the gate, and then it's locked again at the other side. Both levers and wards were actually pre-Victorian. What happened during the 19th century was that engineers took these various ideas and put them together, and they used precision engineering. And the result was a range of locks that were far more secure. The crowning glory of the locksmith's craft is this magnificent wedding cake. It's called the Aubin Trophy, and it was made specially for the Great Exhibition of 1851. As you can see, it's a mass of locks. In fact, there are 44 locks altogether. These were the most celebrated movements available in Britain at the time. There are ward locks and lever locks and all sorts, but this one I'm particularly fond of. This is a pierce lock, and it's got a little harpoon underneath, and if you try and pick it, it fires the harpoon into your hand. Very, very uncomfortable. They're all different, and they all operate individually. Look at this one. But the one at the top, which is a Bramah, operates the whole lot together. Just watch. I have to push it down, turn it round, and now they all lock, all 44 of them, and then they all unlock again. Isn't that fantastic? The top British locksmiths were so confident their designs were unbeatable, they offered prizes to anyone who could pick them. But one particular visitor to the Crystal Palace shook their self-belief. An American locksmith called Alfred Charles Hobbs came over to England for the Great Exhibition of 1851 and caused a public outcry when he successfully picked the Bramah Challenge lock. Hobbs made short work of all Britain's best locks before turning his attention to a lock reckoned to be invincible, the Bramah Challenge lock. Despite a prize of 200 guineas, this padlock had resisted all attempts to pick it for 50 years. But working in secret, Hobbs opened it and caused a national outrage. Even today, no one's sure exactly what he did. So presumably he picked this quickly, did he?
51 hours.
51 hours.
Spread over 16 days.
Ah, you can't quite imagine a burglar spending 51 hours at your front door, can you?
And not being caught.
No, absolutely. And how do you think he did it?
Well, whether he picked it or not is a matter of debate. He opened it.
Right.
And the judges determined that we should pay the 200 guineas, which we did.
What was he up against?
Well, the Bramah mechanism was a revolutionary mechanism in its day.
Right.
This 12-guard system, 12-slided system, has got something like 64 million variations potentially in it. The challenge padlock, reputed to be 18-slided, has a multiple of that.
Right.
And so it's a very, very
That's
difficult
quite a tough
thing.
challenge.
Oh,
yes.
It's an awesome challenge.
Do you think there could have been a hint of foul play here?
Well, I'm a Bramah.
So you're biased.
So I have a bias.
Okay.
But we paid, I mean, he certainly got it open.
Right. And you paid the money out.
And whether he did it in the spirit of the challenge, is a different matter.
They made a lot of fuss at the time, didn't they?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But it was paid.
They paid.
That's right.
So, what we'd like to do is find out what happened to this, the most famous lock in the world. We've challenged the Science Museum to open it up for the first time in 150 years, try and discover what Hobbs was up to and solve the mystery. According to the museum archives, no one's opened this lock since Hobbs in 1851. Time for us to be shut out, because even though it's 2 centuries old, the workings of this lock are still a closely guarded Bramah secret. But when Keith did finally let us back in, he had a surprise in store. This is the first time this lock's been opened for 150 years. Indeed, the first time the public has ever seen inside. Now, Keith, what are your conclusions?
This is the difficult part, because allegedly he drilled it to put pressure inside the lock.
Yes.
And nobody actually knows how he picked this lock, because he did it out of sight of anybody.
Yeah.
So therefore we don't really know.
Right.
And then he sealed it again with a piece of brass and used sulphuric acid. If you have a look on the body of the lock and even the central piece there is no evidence of being drilled or filled at all.
And what about the sliders? What would you expect to see on those?
Well, I would expect to find marking on the sliders. He would be putting probes and picks in, and you would burr the edge.
You mean turn the edge over?
Yeah, turn the edge over, and you'd score it as well. And there is no evidence of this at all. Now, also, the lock was on a board, and probably what I think is Bramah's being a reputable company, which it is, they left the original lock on the board, although they'd made more modifications.
Ah, so you think they put in a new mechanism?
Yes.
After he picked it?
Yes, that's
And
right.
so this isn't the original challenge lock.
No.
What do you think about that, Jeremy? Guess.
Yes.
Yes.
OK. What I think probably happened is it was a working model. In Bramah's shop window, it was used to attract people in and had been there for 50 years. I think when the money was paid out, Bramah's rebuilt the inside and put it back in the shop window with the challenge board to demonstrate that it was still impregnable. And to my knowledge, nobody else came in afterwards and promptly picked it.
So clearly then you're saying this is not the challenge padlock?
It looks unlikely.
Right. So, 150 years after the event, we've written a new chapter in the story of the Bramah challenge lock. And it looks unlikely that anyone will ever get any closer to discovering exactly what Hobbs did to this prize exhibit. The old locks were no longer perceived to be secure, and a young American locksmith grabbed the opportunity to promote something new, radical and safe. Linus Yale's new lock had 2 tremendous advantages. First of all, it was quite fiddly and difficult to pick. And secondly, it was mass-produced. That was really important because it meant it was much cheaper. It's a legacy we still live with today. Practically every front door in the country is fitted with a cylinder lock. Just one more thing that the Victorians did for us.